for his address.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mia Muhammad Shehbaz Sharif Sahab, distinguished ambassadors of Denmark, Norway, and France, representatives of the international media support, international delegates from Asia and Europe, and representatives of Pakistani media, civil society, and fellow journalists, Assalamu alaikum and good morning. On behalf of the Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition as its third chairperson, and on behalf of Freedom Network, the co-organizers of the conference, I welcome you all to the conference, 10 years of United Nations Plan of Action in Asia, Islamabad Safety Forum. We have gathered here today to reflect on the deeply influential impact of the seminal UN Plan of Action on Safety of Journalists and Issues of Impunity, 10 years after it was launched in 2012 to help reduce violence against journalists and punish their attackers. And I remember that this effort was started when the elder brother of our Prime Minister, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, he was also Prime Minister, and we met him, and that's how we started this effort. The plan of action has helped many countries in many ways. Some of these ways will be discussed in the afternoon sessions, focusing on Asian countries. The morning sessions will focus on Pakistan, and this will include key findings from a report investigating the impact of the UN Plan of Action on Pakistan. The results from the report show both achievements and shortcomings. So it is a mixed bag for Pakistan. However, Pakistan has come some way since the UN Plan of Action. For example, Pakistan is the only country in Asia where the parliament has worked with the media and civil society to legislate on safety of journalists. Additionally, Pakistan has demonstrated that broad-based alliances are possible for key causes and that they can deliver results. The Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition operates both at the federal and provincial levels to advocate for safety of journalists. It includes media associations, political parties, parliamentarians, national human rights commissions, digital and human rights groups, medical support groups, union of journalists, and press clubs. Working together, these stakeholders have ensured that the cause of safety of journalists has become a national cause in Pakistan that is linked to larger values of freedom of expression, human rights, and democracy. Their success has meant that Pakistani society now sees attacks against journalists and intimidation of media as an attack on democracy itself. In this way, the struggle of journalists is nurturing democracy in Pakistan, and this is not a small achievement. With these pluses, there are some minuses. There have also been a major reduction in the levels of murders of journalists in Pakistan since the UN Plan of Action galvanized Pakistani journalists and civil society to unite against the attacks. But murders still happen. Sometimes Pakistani journalists are not safe even outside Pakistan, like Arshad Sharif. The murders of only 2 journalists out of 53 journalists killed in Pakistan in the last 10 years have been convicted. And Pakistan must improve its capture and conviction of attackers of journalists. All the journalists killed in the line of duty, including Arshad Sharif, must get justice. And we are thankful to Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif that he wrote a letter to the Chief Justice of Pakistan for making a commission to investigate the assassination of Arshad Sharif. And last year when Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was in opposition and our colleagues Asad Tur and Absar Alam were attacked in Islamabad, so he not only visited them but also raised voice against violence against journalists. Now he is the Prime Minister, and we hope that he will try his level best to find out the culprits who attacked Asad Tur and Absar Alam. The Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition thinks the following steps can dramatically help reduce impunity of crimes against journalists in Pakistan, so that Pakistan not only has the world's best laws on safety of journalists, but also the safest journalists in the world. The federal and Sindh laws on safety of journalists were unanimously passed by National Assembly and Sindh Assembly last year. The federal and Sindh governments must immediately notify the safety commissions under these laws so that they can be operationalized and journalists start benefiting from them. Laws were passed, but we are still waiting for the implementation. The Safety Commission must be provided funds, offices, staff, and technical resources to do their jobs. The journalists of Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and Punjab also deserve special laws for their safety like their counterparts in federal and Sindh jurisdictions. The ruling and opposition parties must show unanimous support to pass similar laws in these three provinces immediately. The Safety Coalition is already advocating with these provincial assemblies to fast-track this process. The draconian Section 6 from the Federal Journalist Safety Law, which acts as a pre-qualifier for journalists before benefiting from the law, must be immediately removed. This Section 6 was included in the Journalist Safety Bill without our consent. I still remember that when we agreed on a final draft of the Journalist Safety Bill, I showed that draft to late I.A. Rahman Saab, who was the president of the Safety Commission, and this organization, which is the organizer of this seminar. And Mr. I.A. Rahman Saab was very happy, and he said that it's a miracle it is passed in Pakistan. And Section 6 was not part of that original bill. We agreed on the bill in the Human Rights Committee of the National Assembly. All of us were present. It was presided by Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. He was in the opposition at that time. After that meeting, Section 6, which is a censorship clause, was mysteriously included in that bill. So we demand to remove that censorship clause in the Journalist Safety Bill. There is already support from both government and opposition parties for its removal, and this should happen quickly. Combating cybercrime is essential to safe internet, but this must not be an excuse to hound media practitioners. As repeatedly stated by the Honorable Islamabad High Court, journalists must be taken out of the purview of any restriction on online expression through laws such as PICA or other regulations. The federal and provincial government must announce support for an end to restrictions, attacks, and intimidation of women journalists, both offline and online, because without women's safety able to practice journalism, Pakistan cannot have public interest journalism. And I must mention the name of Asma Shirazi Sahiba, Nigat Dad Sahiba, and some other female journalists who are present here. And they are living example of courage and bravery, because they faced online harassment very bravely, and we must salute their bravery. The National Commission on Human Rights, the National Commission on Status of Women, The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan and the Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition should form an alliance for this purpose. Ahead of general elections next year, all political parties registered with the Election Commission of Pakistan must include a separate section in their manifesto guaranteeing safety of journalists, freedom of expression, and right to information. We believe these widely supported steps can dramatically put Pakistan in the top ranks of the safest countries to practice journalism. In the end, I would like to thank my colleagues at the Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition, especially Iqbal Khattak Saab and Adnan Rahmat Saab, for facilitating this conference, UNESCO, the Pakistan Federal Union of Journalists, and the international media support, Reporters Without Borders, for supporting cause of India freedom and safety of journalists throughout these years. And we are all grateful to the Prime Minister, Mia Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif Saab, and his Information Minister, Saiba, who is not here due to a death in her family, for their gracious time and support for the journalists for Pakistan. Once again, thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Hamid Mir Saab. International Media Support is an international civil society organization that has played a very important role in putting UN plan into action. Mr. Lars Bestley is the regional director of IMS. I'll request him to share his experiences with us.
Your Excellencies, Honorable Mr. Prime Minister, the ambassadors of Denmark, Norway and France, distinguished guests from a lot of countries in Asia, a very warm welcome. And to the host of Pakistan, thank you so much for having us today. It is indeed such a privilege to be here on this occasion. And we are gathered, as Hamid Mir said, to celebrate key achievements that Pakistan has made in good use of the UN Plan of Action on the safety of journalists and the issue of impunity. But we are also here to spotlight this very serious matter, namely the crimes against journalists and thereby also crimes for a free and independent media. In the last 10 years, 604 journalists have been killed globally due to their work. Several more killings have perished because motives were unconfirmed. But the fact is that the majority of these journalists were not killed in crossfire, but rather died as targets for their reporting. And most of these crimes goes unpunished. There is a lack of effective mechanism that can deal with this problem comprehensively, deal with attacks of killings of journalists. And this has led to a growing culture of impunity in a lot of countries globally. The plan of action was set up in response to this trend now 10 years ago. It has shown to be a very critical instrument to sum up global consensus around the issue of not keeping journalists safe, but also as a useful set of guidelines for who should do what to make this happen. It was launched in 2012 and is now 10 years old. And it's a good time with this 10 years anniversary to reflect on how influential it has been and how has it guided us and relevant stakeholders in taking the steps needed to reduce violence across the globe. And Pakistan was one of the 5 pilot countries for the initial implementation when it first was launched in 2012. And I remember numerous consultations here in Islamabad since 2013, when we together with several stakeholders came together to launch these efforts in Pakistan, and of course together with UNESCO as well as the leading UN body. Also other countries in Asia are battling with similar challenges, and several of them are represented here today. We have come a long way in improving the situation and in ensuring that every country that IMS is working in has mechanisms in place that can safeguard journalists and information workers, even though many challenges still remains. How this has happened and how the UN Plan of Action has influenced this endeavor in Asia, including in Pakistan, is indeed very much a story worth telling and also to be further examined. And that is what the purpose of this conference is about. So it will do, firstly, after this session, look at the findings of a new report that has been launched. This report ranks the performance of various Pakistani duty bearers, including the media, the government, civil society, international organizations, against duties identified in the plan of action, and there will also be a follow-up consultation with a broad range of Pakistani stakeholders represented today. We will also have more focused discussions in the afternoon with several other Asian countries on case studies and on the impact. And these countries, for instance, include Indonesia, Nepal, Philippines, Myanmar, Afghanistan, among others. Hopefully, the consultations will help surface key trends and lessons that Asia that can help each other to stay inspired and build upon these achievements. We also hope that it will foster greater horizontal collaboration and engagement among media and media support groups to keep media freedom and public interest journalism in Asia as key drivers of democracy and development. I myself represent International Media Support, or IMS, a global organization promoting professional and reliable journalism, safer environments for journalists, and public interest media that operates on a global consensus on open societies and democratic values. We have been supporting all stakeholders identified in the UN Plan of Action in furthering the objectives. They include UNESCO, national governments, media, civil society, and international organizations across the globe, and of course also in Pakistan. And in Pakistan, all these stakeholders have done well in terms of the collaborative spirit that is also promoted by the Plan of Action. So much that Pakistan has become the first country in Asia to specifically legislate on the safety of journalists. And that's quite an achievement. And this result has been possible due to the consensus in Pakistan. 10 years of consultation and dialogue among media groups and other important groups that have a stake in this. And it's not just a matter for the media, but it's also a matter that is relevant and important and integral to the whole mission of democracy. This is a vision we share, and it's now evidence of progress through broad, inspiring collaborations among Pakistani government, political parties, UN agency, media industry, journalist association, media development groups, and platforms, and some of them are represented here today, such as Freedom Network, IRADA, the Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition, Digital Media Alliance of Pakistan, and the Pakistan Federal Union of Journalists, among others. Very crucially, this shared endeavor has also been possible through the consistent support of the governments of Denmark and Norway that have a long history assisting Pakistan in its endeavor for economic development and social progress, including for a free and independent media. And we thank them very much for their support. Lastly, I would also like to thank the government of Pakistan for showing commitments to the ideals of media freedoms, and indeed the representation of His Excellencies, the Honorable Prime Minister of Pakistan at this event focusing on safety of journalists is a clear and inspiring signal of welcome commitment at the highest possible level in the nation. Problem still remains, but 10 years of hard work has paid off, and we hope some of today's discussions will further the commitment of all stakeholders to overcome remaining challenges. This is a shared goal. Let's continue working together in paving the way for safer journalism. Thank you very much.
We are honored to have four great friends of Pakistan with us, who are also great friends of media in the world and in Pakistan. Danish civil society and Danish government has always extended technical support and knowledge to journalists in the world and in Pakistan to help them build their capacities and to promote their safety. Denmark is also Pakistan's partner in green transition and in green journalism. I'll now give floor to His Excellency Jacob Lee-Nulf, Ambassador of Denmark to Pakistan.
Thank you, and good morning. It is indeed a splendid morning here in beautiful Islamabad, but also a very, very important morning today. Your Excellency, Prime Minister of Pakistan, representatives of Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition, international media support, my dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we are here today for a very important, vital cause. The 10th years anniversary of the UN Plan of Action on safety of journalism, safety of journalists, and issues of impunity. It is crucial to work for freedom of expression and a safe environment for journalists. That goes for my country, Denmark. It goes for Pakistan as well as for any country globally. It is therefore very close to my heart that Denmark and Pakistan work so closely together on exactly this matter. Let me highlight that the Danish Media Development Organization, IMS, as we just heard, co-organizes and work closely together with Pakistan on today's conference. Denmark backs community journalism in Pakistan. We have done that for many years, and our support goes to a growing ecosystem of media startups in the country, represented by the Digital Media Alliance of Pakistan. Our shared goal is a vibrant and independent community-focused journalism, strengthening inclusive and plural discourses, advancing democracy. In the spirit of our close cooperation, I would like to congratulate Pakistan for legislation on the safety of journalists. Pakistan is the first Asian country to do so. To me, it represents a state commitment to the safety of journalists. This remarkable achievement deserves large recognition. It proves that there is a broad-based consensus in Pakistan for plural media. I hope that Pakistan hereby inspires other countries in Asia to follow these footsteps. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many stories from Pakistan that needs to be told. There are many good stories, many positive stories. There's also sad stories. And Pakistan is, right now, while we are gathered here, experiencing a disastrous humanitarian catastrophe. Climate change results in devastating monsoons, melting glaciers, and shocking heat waves. Floods claim the lives of thousands, displace millions, destroy farmland and normal people's livelihoods. We are faced with a tragedy when it comes to clean water, food, and healthcare. This is a story that must be told. Actions with the global community must be taken. The governments of Denmark and Pakistan, we are committed to a long-term green cooperation. It spans from wind energy to green fuels in the heavy industries and much, much more. It also includes journalists. We recently arranged a visit of Pakistani journalists to Denmark to enhance the capacity of them and Pakistani media to report on climate change and sustainability. When I look at Pakistan, I see a beautiful country, beautiful people, great potential for social development and economic progress. This potential will be nurtured through continued attention to media freedom and inclusion of plural voices, views, and perspectives. This will increase demand for sustainable development and citizens' inclusion in policy making. So, Government of Pakistan, the Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition, international media support, and all other stakeholders of Pakistan's media, you're on a very important mission, too important to fail. Keep it up, and I wish you a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Norway is an amazing country, known for promoting the cause of a peaceful world. I'll give floor to His Excellency Per Albert Ilsas, Ambassador of Norway to Pakistan.
Thank you, and a good morning to all. Honorable Prime Minister Sharif, Mr. Hamid Mir, Excellencies, distinguished participants, colleagues. Today we mark the 10th anniversary of the UN Plan of Action on the Safety of Journalists and the issue of impunity. One of my greatest pleasures since arriving here in Pakistan has been to start every morning with a cup of coffee and a copy of the daily edition of Pakistan's English language national newspapers. Unfortunately, I do not read Urdu. As a new reader of these newspapers, one quickly realizes a couple of things. First, there are a few new words and expressions to learn. One of these expressions in particular is pretty ubiquitous: establishment. Second, one realizes that one needs to read quite a bit between the lines, and sometimes away from the pages of newsprint altogether. Pakistani journalists self-censor a lot, it seems. Some things can only be said or written indirectly, and some things cannot be said or written at all. I have appreciated meeting and much admired the talented journalists of this country. People with passion and bravery dedicated to providing the public with access to reliable information on what goes on in their country, and who are great at writing between the lines. Freedom of expression is one of the foundations on which other democratic freedoms rest. True democracy requires freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is necessary to ensure that other human rights are being fulfilled and reveal instances when they are being violated. At best, quality journalism not only ensures participation and access to information, but it also counters disinformation and promotes understanding between communities. Freedom of expression and access to reliable information thus further the sustainable and democratic development of societies. The safety and protection of journalists and other media workers is crucial to safeguard freedom of expression and access to information. Sadly, this is not something we can take for granted. On average, a journalist is killed every 4 days globally. In 9 out of 10 journalist killings, those responsible go unpunished. According to UNESCO's Observatory of Killed Journalists, in Pakistan, between 4 and 10 journalists have been killed every year for the last 10 years. This year's UNESCO figure stood at 6 before the brutal murder of Mr. Arshad Sharif in Kenya. Surveys show that female journalists are particularly exposed to online violence, and that this online violence is often linked to physical violence and harassment offline. Harassment and violence against women journalists pose a threat to gender equality in the media and produce a lack of female voices and perspectives in society as a whole. We, as a global community, must ensure a safe environment for journalists online and offline. Norway remains committed to promoting democracy and freedom of expression and information globally by strengthening media diversity and media freedom. At a high-level multi-stakeholder conference in Vienna last month, Norway pledged to increase support to UNESCO's work to promote the safety of journalists and to promote access to information as a public good. Last year, Sindh passed Sindh Protection of Journalists and Other Media Practitioners Law. Later in the year, the government of Pakistan adopted the Protection of Journalists and Media Professionals Act. These are very important initial steps towards ensuring the safety of journalists and media practitioners and protect them from harassment and violence. It is my understanding that other provinces are working on similar legislation, thereby demonstrating also their commitment to ensure the safety of journalists. I congratulate everyone who has been involved in successfully building a consensus on the importance of taking legal action to protect journalists from harassment and violence in Pakistan. Of course, legislation is not sufficient for impunity. Implementation and enforcement are required. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the Pakistani Journalist Safety Coalition and the Freedom Network for giving us this opportunity to express our support and great admiration for the resourceful and fearless journalists in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for reminding us about the glass half empty, and ensure you that we'll be talking about it a lot in this forum. France is a land of liberty. It has championed freedom of expression amongst other causes through its international civil society organizations like Journalists Without Borders and through its government. Now I'll invite His Excellency Nicolas Algheli, Honorable Ambassador of France to Pakistan.
Thank you very much, and first of all, sorry for my bad voice today. Honorable Prime Minister, Chairman Hamid Mir, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to take part in this conference celebrating the 10 years of the UN Plan of Action on the Safety of Journalists and the issues of impunity, and I thank the Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition for organizing it, and of course for inviting me. Thanks in particular to Mr. Iqbal Khattak and Freedom Network Pakistan, whom I would like to congratulate once again for the Human Rights Prize of the French Republic, which was awarded to them in 2017. And thanks again, Prime Minister, for your very important, significant presence. This conference deals with the priority issue for my country, which motto, liberty, equality, fraternity, puts the principle of freedom first. Freedom of expression obviously includes freedom of the press, and consequently the protection of those who make a free press, the journalists. Throughout the world, France is committed to reaffirming its constant and determined commitment to this freedom. The challenge consists of giving more visibility to this issue on each level at the UN, as the UN Plan of Action on Safety of Journalists and the issue of impunity aims at, and as this conference today also does. France carries out its advocacy in international forums, whether at the United Nations in New York and Geneva, at the UNESCO in Paris, at the USC in Vienna, and at the Council of Europe in Strasbourg. It does this with all its partners, our EU partners in particular. In these forums, we promote media pluralism and independence, the right to inform and to be informed, and the ability to express critical points of view. Freedom of the press is not an obstacle to good government. It is part of it, because government also need to be well informed. And this may not be always the case from what was called recently on this tribune, the establishment. Within the framework, what is at stake in the promotion of a free, democratic and trustworthy global information space, what is at stake is also the access to reliable and quality information for everyone. We are determined to act in this regard, particularly within the framework of the Partnership for Information and Democracy launched in 2019 by Reporters Without Borders, an NGO founded in France in 1985. And this partnership has been signed to date by nearly 50 states from all regions of the world. We also reiterate this position in other occasions on international days, such as the International Day to Combat Impunity for Crimes Committed Against Journalists, that's on 2nd November, or the International Human Rights Day, which will be celebrated this Saturday, December 10th, to commemorate the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 74 years ago in Paris. Because freedom of expression is an essential component of human rights, I am glad that the Nobel Peace Prize, which consecrates promoters of peace and human rights, is regularly awarded to journalists. This was the case recently in 2021, when the prize was awarded to Filipino-American journalist Maya Ressa, who I had the honor to know, receive and support when I was ambassador to the Philippines, and Russian journalist Dmitry Muratov. Beyond advocacy, France is taking action. Thus, on the occasion of the Paris Peace Forum last month, Minister Catherine Colonna announced political and financial support for the International Fund for Public Interest Media in support of independent media in difficulty. Here in Pakistan, I take this opportunity to welcome, as many did before me, the adoption by the Pakistani authorities of the Journalist Protection Act in 2021. This ambitious law is a major step forward. The challenge, as everywhere else in the world, is in its implementation, including regarding impunity. In addition to the government, the commitment of civil society is as essential. I would like to pay tribute to the Pakistani media and journalists, which through their work, their commitment, make possible to inform all citizens, which is an essential element of democratic life. At this point, let me pay tribute to the 1572 journalists who have been killed in the world since 1993, when the UNESCO Observatory was founded, and this figure obviously includes journalist Arshad Sharif. I wish also praise the actors who work in favor of journalists, in particular the Freedom Network Pakistan and the Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition. Recently, on November 9th, the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our development agency signed a multi-year partnership agreement with Reporters Without Borders, and this €8 million program will concern several countries and benefit to several local organizations over 4 years. I am very happy that the Freedom Network Pakistan is among these beneficiaries. Beyond that, the embassy aims at promoting Pakistani journalists for the different invitation programs to France. For example, 6 Pakistani journalists were invited in France in February 2020, where they met several interlocutors in the administration, parliament, and media and academics. There was an occasion to better understand the French media system and more generally to discover my country. We'll continue to promote this kind of mutually beneficial exchanges. The embassy remains at the disposal of its partner, both the Pakistani media community and the civil society, to work together, acting to promote freedom of expression and freedom of the press requires the daily involvement and vigilance of everyone. The French embassy in Pakistan will play its part by our side, and let me again thank the organizers of this event, and thank you again, Prime Minister, for your significant presence. Thank you very much. Shukriya.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have the Prime Minister of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, His Excellency Mia Muhammad Shahbaz Sharif, as our chief guest. May I request you, sir, to come to the podium for your address.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. Hamid Mir, Chairperson, Pakistan Journalist Safety Commission, Excellencies, Mr. Zargam Khan, Mr. Iqbal Khatak, and Mr. Rahmat, delegates from countries all over the world, especially from Asian countries, honorable journalists of Pakistan, senators, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. It's really a great honor to be here this morning and attend this very important forum relating to safety of journalists all over the world, including Pakistan. And I must say that freedom of expression in this country has been extremely close to the hearts of civil society, independent journalists, media, print, electronic, and of course, other important segments of society. Mr. Hamid Mir, who is chairperson of Journalist Safety Commission, has no doubt faced very difficult circumstances. At one point, he had a very narrow escape in Karachi. God Almighty saved him with his own hands. And then, of course, on other occasions, he faced all this with courage and grit. Not only him, journalists sitting in front of me, I can see on the left side and the right side, they've all contributed in a very big way to safeguard their rights, expression of their sentiments, speeches, and freedom of action. And in the process, all of you have really been targeted, if not all of you, many of you, in one way or the other. And this is something which has earned you as an entity great respect, not only in Pakistan, but internationally. The recent murder of Arshad Sharif is obviously a very sad incident which happened in Kenya. And I spoke to the President of Kenya myself, and also our Foreign Office Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto was in coordination with Kenyan authorities, and I spoke to other agencies in Pakistan for speedy action in this behalf, and also return of his body back to Pakistan. I have written a letter to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Pakistan to constitute a commission, and I hope some action will be taken in this behalf. So, ladies and gentlemen, I really commend your efforts and appreciate your contribution to hold this very important forum. And on this occasion, I acknowledge and laud the work that the Pakistan Journalist Safety Coalition is doing to promote the cause of journalists, their safety, security, and protection in their line of duty. This forum today also marks the 10 years of UN Plan of Action in Asia. It is being held to celebrate the key achievements of Pakistan and other countries of Asia with regard to the implementation of the UN Plan of Action on safety of journalists and the issues of impunity. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an article of faith with me and of course as well as with you that democracy and media freedom reinforce each other. They go hand in hand. And let me state with fullest authority at my command that despite the checkered history, Pakistan is and always will be a democracy. Of course, there have been stints where we had military dictatorship for 33 years, but then we returned to the system of democracy through collective efforts and sacrifices. And let's hope and pray to God that this nascent democratic dispensation becomes stronger by the day through our collective efforts and the science in the right direction. The 1973 Constitution is an outcome of consensus building by our political leadership, and they were giants. Many of them are not in this world, but despite their differences, despite their internal issues, they got together for a very sacred cause and rose above their likes and dislikes and differences and carved out a constitution which is still a binding force for Pakistan's federating units, a force which is so strong that earthquakes and floods could not disturb this arrangement, and therefore 1973 Constitution is a very sacred document. The principles of freedom of expression, of a vibrant and free media, and of freedom of information and are important pillars of any democratic system. My government strongly believes that these freedoms and rights are sacrosanct and remain at the heart of the development of democracy. We are committed to supporting all efforts that promote and uphold these shining principles. The UN Plan for Action on the Safety of Journalists and the issue of impunity, endorsed by the UN Chief Executive Board in 2012, addresses the issue of journalist safety. When in 2013, Pakistan was selected as a pilot country for the implementation of the plan, the then PMLN government, headed by Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, fully endorsed it. It has since always supported all efforts to achieve the goals of protecting media freedom. Pakistan became the first country in Asia to pass legislation on the safety of journalists, both at the federal level and the provincial level in the province of Sindh. And my party and other parties in this coalition government will continue to support the ongoing efforts in Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and Punjab to legislate on the safety of journalists. Last year, the Parliament of Pakistan passed the landmark Protection of Journalists and Media Professionals Act after thorough deliberations and the consultations with all stakeholders, principally the journalistic bodies. As evidence of how deeply political parties believe in democracy and the principles of free speech and a free and vibrant media, the law was passed unanimously by the National Assembly of Pakistan. Mr. Hamid Mir has raised a pertinent point that Section 6 was mysteriously included subsequently. Well, I will certainly look into it and have this consultative process with you and see how we can overcome this impediment. The Protection of Journalists and Media Professionals Act recognizes the rights of journalists and media professionals against ill treatment, harassment, and intimidation, including the loss of life. It recognizes the right to privacy and independence in the performance of their duties. It seeks to protect media persons from all kinds of aggression and expects an independent commission for the protection of journalists and media professionals. I understand, ladies and gentlemen, and also acknowledge that there are still challenges facing our journalists and media practitioners in the performance of their responsibilities as outlined in the report and like elsewhere in other parts of the world. However, I feel that these require sustainable engagement and collaboration among all the stakeholders such as the state, media, civil society, parliament, the UN, and other international bodies. This is the only way to combat impunity of crimes against journalists everywhere in the world, including Pakistan. My government believes that no journalists or information practitioners or human rights defenders should be called out or attacked for exercising their freedom of expression as guaranteed under the Constitution of Pakistan. I would also like to appreciate the contribution of the international community in supporting the democratic, economic, and social development of Pakistan, especially the UNESCO and countries like Denmark, Norway, and France. Pakistan looks to strengthen and deepen its relationship with Europe, especially economic and trade ties with European countries, and the GSP Plus status that helps Pakistan strengthen its economy. We hope this status will continue and our relationship will further grow from strength to strength. And that also means we would like to cultivate our relation with other countries like Britain, United States of America, and East Asia, Far East, and of course Central Asian countries, and of course South Asia, because this is how the global world is meant to be, to have closer interaction to alleviate poverty, unemployment in this world. Without that, this world cannot progress. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure the Islamabad Journalists Forum will hold important deliberations on the challenges facing working journalists and media persons. Let me take this opportunity to reiterate my government's firm commitment to facilitate the implementation of federal safety legislation for journalists. It has been dormant, I agree, and I'm not going to shift blame to any political entity or government. Suffice it to say that we will take it up proactively and complete the steps sooner rather than later. We also look forward to the outcomes and recommendations of this forum. Let me assure you that the government would like to be part of the efforts aimed at making Pakistani democracy stronger through greater free media. There can be no democracy without the freedom of expression and without breaks or shackles. I wish the organizers of this event all the success. I thank you all. Pakistan, Zindabad.
जर्नलिस्ट सेफ्टी फोरम के तहत तकरीब से वज़ीर आज़म मोहम्मद शहबाज शरीफ का खिताब आप मुलाहजा कर रहे थे। उनका कहना था कि इजहार राय की आज़ादी हर माशरे के लिए ज़रूरी है। सहाफ़ी फ़राइज़ की अदायगी में सेफ्टी, सिक्योरिटी और प्रोटेक्शन का होना लाजमी है। सहाफ़ी अरशद शरीफ की हलाकत अफसोसनाक वाक़या है। इस सिलसिले में कीनिया के सदर से बात की। अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा के 10 साला प्लान ऑफ एक्शन के तहत पाकिस्तान अपनी जिम्मेदारी बतौर बेहतर तरीके से निभा रहा है। तमाम सहाफ़ी मुझे अजीज़ हैं और सहाफ़ियों के हुकूक़ के लिए इक़दाम कर रहे हैं। मीडिया किसी भी जमहूरी रियासत में अहम सतून की हैसियत रखता है। PTV न्यूज़ से ये थी ताज़ा तरीन।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। नाज़रीन अस्सलाम वालेकुम। प्रोग्राम में कैपिटल व्यू, मैं हूँ यासिर रहमान। आज के प्रोग्राम में हम बात करेंगे वज़ीर आज़म शहबाज शरीफ के मीरपुर के दौरे के हवाले से, जहाँ पे मंगला डैम के 5 और 6 जो यूनिट्स हैं उसकी तजदीद व मुरम्मत के बाद इफ्तिताह कर दिया गया है और इसके लिए जो है US गवर्नमेंट ने जो है इमदाद फराहम की है, ताउन किया है और US के जो एम्बेसडर हैं वो भी वहाँ पे मौजूद थे। उन्होंने तकरीब से खिताब भी किया है। खिताब में उन्होंने जो बात की है, उन्होंने ये कहा है कि जी कि पाकिस्तान में जो हाइडल के जो पोटेंशियल है, और हाइडल का पोटेंशियल 50 से 60 हज़ार मेगावाट है, जो पाकिस्तान की न सिर्फ ज़रूरियात को पूरा करता है बल्कि हम जो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी है सरप्लस जो है उससे मज़ीद भी फ़ायदा उठा सकते हैं, यानी एक्सपोर्ट भी कर सकते हैं।